Hello, everyone. Welcome to one more episode of our podcast, Real AI Now. This is a podcast where we discuss real applications of AI in business, brought to you by Two Impulse. Today, we have a special guest. His name is Nan Zhong. He is a tech entrepreneur, an investor, long background in the tech industry and AI. He has worked as a product manager at Uber and more recently as a product lead at Shopee. Shopee is one of the largest e-commerce companies in Southeast Asia and South America and Latin America. So welcome, Nan. Let's jump right into it. E-commerce. How good are these e-commerce recommendation engines these days? How much AI is there? How much do they actually know about consumers?
Hi, Paulo. Very glad to join the podcast and talk to you and the audience. To answer your first question, AI is used everywhere in e-commerce. I can give you detailed examples in search and recommendation, and in general discovery and conversion, in logistics, in fraud detection, in supply chain management, and so on and so forth. But to answer your foremost question regarding how much does AI know about your shopping behavior, I would say a lot, especially you use the platform a lot. Essentially, I think most modern recommendation engines, if they have sufficient data about the consumer, they can predict with a rather good confidence about the type of content and the products the user are interested in at a category level. For example, your apparel, certain type of apparels or certain kind of electronic brands, and so on and so forth. And then the purchasing power, and also the preferred time of shopping and means of shopping at a rather good level. They're also able to help you to discover something that might interest you. And this is even more so in the content-heavy platforms like TikTok, right? So they do that pretty well. And I can foresee that with the power of large language model like GPT-4 and the interactions with ChatGPT, like chatbot, in the future, they would be able to know much more. Yeah. So they do know very well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I understand we opened the Pandora box here. So you started by saying so recommendation was something that I said is something where AI is used, and you talked about search and discovery. I think you said that because you said a lot of things. Then you said fraud detection. Where else is AI used? So that we could, I would like us to pick up on each one of these points. So
promotion and
what was that? Sorry?
Promotion and campaigns.
And campaigns. So search and product discovery, fraud detection, promotion and campaigns, and recommendation. Okay.
And the logistics.
And logistics. Okay.
Logistics and supply chain. Yeah. So it's essentially used in
the whole
e-commerce value chain, from the supply side to the demand side.
Okay, recommendation. You said they know a lot about the consumer, and they're fairly good at predicting what the consumer is going to buy next. And I mean, is this just out of the box? Or let's say I start a shopping, an e-commerce company that doesn't have a lot of customers yet. Is this also possible to do? Or is there some AI that is pre-trained? Or is it something that I need to have a lot of data myself in order to have this level of quality of recommendation?
Yeah, cool. So this is actually a very good question. that for now, I think if you start fresh in a small website where you shop or app, I don't think they can do recommendation very well in general, because they lack the user behavior specifically about you, the new user, and the user behavior at scale, right? About how a large group of users interact with their catalog, with their type of content.
Right.
And then when we go to the most popular sites, like Facebook, Google, YouTube, and Amazon and Netflix, where they know a lot about you and a lot about the other users on their websites, on their on their real estates, they can do it fairly well. And then if you put the privacy concerns and the legal boundaries that the regulation had put for them, in the industry, they did a lot what we call third-party data linking, where you actively purchase data or you through partnerships or commercial deals to link so-called first-party data, what they know about you, with third-party data, where some other third parties know about you and they link them together through the identifiable IDs like UID or in a cookie for websites case. And then that's why when you go to some random websites and you got recommended something that you previously talked about on Facebook, right? So that was a route for that to happen.
And I had a guest last year here who said she works in privacy, and she said that third-party cookies were always illegal. So in essence, but sort of basically they're not being policed at all. So third-party cookies, at least in Europe, European Union, have been illegal for a long time. Meaning, I go to the website, and then the fact that I visited their website, there is a pixel there from Google or from Facebook. Then I go to Facebook and I see an ad for that company or product. This has been illegal for a long time, but somehow they still managed to do it. But let me go back to the beginning, to the recommendation, to the question I asked you before about. So we have companies like Amazon or probably Shopee, where you worked, large e-commerce companies. They know a lot about you. They have a lot of data. They have pretty fancy recommendation models. And then you talked about the small companies. I didn't quite understand that. So what chance does a small e-commerce company have to create a good recommendation? Or do they have to have a good recommendation system that actually drives revenue? What chance do they have at the beginning to do that? Or if not, do they have to wait until they reach a certain size and have a certain amount of data in order to have a good recommendation system that actually drives revenue?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think my personal opinion is that they need to reach a critical mass before they would have recommendation that can drive the growth very effectively.
Okay.
At the early stage for cold start, it's just hard. It's even hard for us when we enter a new market back at Shopee. When what we do, the best we can do is popularity-based recommendation, where you find the most popular things and you try to recommend that to everyone.
So even Shopee, who was quite large, entering a new market, had to sort of start from scratch, because you cannot just recycle a model that was trained on the market. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there were some transfer learning you can do, but that's just to a certain limit that you can achieve. And also, the other thing is, if you don't have the user behavior, you need to focus on the content. It's you try to build a model on what the particular product is about, or if you're doing, a video, you try to label the video. That's very costly, and you don't have the ability for a small company to label so much data, right? And so it is going to be very unlikely for them to do that very well at the early stage.
Okay.
And usually at that stage, what we do is more rely on operations to get the operational team to say, okay, curate what we should give to the users, and then to also focus on a smaller cohort of users, because you can't satisfy everyone. So you need sort of a self-selection process in the beginning to say, okay, this is a group of users who are interested in us. And then you start the ball rolling. And after it reaches a certain critical size, and then your engine would be able to kick in and do more work. But this is the last paradigm. We are entering a new paradigm of large language models like ChatGPT. It doesn't need to know anything about you, right? And you start interacting with it. You can express what you want in a more interactive manner, and in a few conversations, it will be able to sort of gauge what you want and tell you things. So that totally, turned the things upside down for what we learned about. Yeah.
So, in other words, ChatGPT, in the ChatGPT, there's a lot of transfer learning. There's a lot of knowledge about the world in general, like large language models. And this knowledge can be transferred so that these models can become a good recommender system without having to know a lot about the user, and without having to know they have the need to have a lot of historical data about somebody and about the shopping behaviors in order to make good recommendations, right? So system like that can quickly make a fairly good recommendation with just a few data points about me.
Yeah. And then it changes the user interaction, right? Because if you think about the traditional user interaction of e-commerce, it was usually three, right? So it's usually search. You know what you want, right? And then you go to search for it. Browsing, where they curate certain things for you, and then you go and look over it. And then recommendation, right? Then they don't curate and then just show you things which you may not understand, but then it just meets what you need. But with the chatbots rise, you will add these chatting, like shopping assistant kind of experience, and then that just totally change how the game is played.
So that's quite interesting, and I had the same realization recently. So I give an example. So we are moving into the topic: how is the shopping experience is going to change with AI, right? Because you talked about AI in recommendation in sort of certain points, and in search, in recommendation. So AI in search, there's a lot of AI there, learn to rank, and AI machine learning algorithms there. Then there is in the recommendation system, they are sort of separate from each other. The search system and the recommendation, as far as I know, at least classically, they are separate. Then the other systems we talked about, they are also separate. They're not part of the same general AI. Now, example, I have in my car, there's this piece that got broken. Now, I don't know the name of the piece. I just know the purpose of the piece, which is meant to basically hang. It's basically to keep there's this like in the luggage compartment, there's this flap, and there's a string holding the flap, and in order for the string to hold the flap, there's this rubber piece just that keeps it. Well, how the hell is this called? So what do? I cannot go to Amazon or to a car part shop because I don't know the name of the thing. And I cannot go there and ask a question. Okay, tell me the name of the piece that does this and that and that. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
With search, you cannot find that on Amazon by asking these questions. So what do? I go to Google and I try to find out. With Google, you can ask some questions. You can Google, okay, what is the name of the piece
Yeah.
that is at the end of the string and that hangs, that keeps this flap of my car, of this is the type of car, blah, blah, blah. Then I somehow find the name of the piece in Google, and then I go to the shop and try to use the search function. If I'm lucky, I find it in one shop on Amazon, or because Amazon pretty much has everything, but I don't think car parts is their strength. They don't have all car parts for all brands. So I need to go to specialized car parts, whatever. And then, okay. And so it takes me quite a few steps until I find out what it is. Now, if I go to ChatGPT, this might be too specific for ChatGPT, but it's just an example. But I can ask the question, what's the name of that car part that does that and that and that? And it tells me, oh, that should be blah, blah, blah. And then I go, so where can I order this online? And then it says, oh, there's this shop, that shop, that shop. Okay. So I just go and order it. Now, if you take that to the next level, which is actually you have a ChatGPT or you have such an experience connected to the shop, you could do the shopping right there. You can't do that yet. But I guess this would be the next step. Do you agree?
I do think so. I do think this is going to be the future, and it's going to save a lot of problems like what you encountered, right? Like car parts, certain small medical issues, which, I have no idea what it is, right? Like, or, things about baby, we both have kids, there are certain things about baby. I don't even know how to tell people, how do people name it? And I think it's going to be a very great future, in my opinion, that if we would have that kind of assistant that you can have a conversation with, and the assistant can help you to figure out where to do next, right? Where to go, and to solve your problems, right? Together with you. And I do think that's coming. And one thing to add here is I do see the future of shopping experiences is multimodal, right? So right now we add in the conversation part, right? The text.
Right.
I would imagine it would be helpful if you take a picture of that.
Of course, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, and I imagine if the AI could understand the pictures.
Well, and then I talk, and then I said, look, this piece got broken. Could you help me find this piece somewhere? Right? So I complemented with an explanation. Yeah,
exactly. Right. So it should be multimodal, and then you would have pictures, you may even have videos, and then the AI could understand it and then help you to say, okay, well, I got your question. This is what it is about. And they help you to go and shop it. Right. The LLMs right now, they are able to get the text pretty well, but the pictures, I'm not sure if they're connected, right? But once they are, like, this is going to be super, super powerful. Yeah.
Well, there's some like the launch of GPT-4, when they announced that they announced that it's multimodal, or at least is able to read pictures, take pictures and convert them into tokens, and then even when it answers, it should be even able to answer with a picture, to not just text. So they claim that the model already does it. It's just not released yet to the public. I'm also very excited. It's a bit scary. I'm scary and excited at the same time, I have to admit. Because basically there are some dangers to this, but let's set that aside for the time being. Let's talk about the exciting things. I would like to help some of our possible listeners, watchers, audience in the audience. So if I am, let's say, if I am a fairly small, or I mean, not very large e-commerce company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the data that Amazon has. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the data that these large companies have, like Amazon or
Mm-hmm.
Shopee or I mean, even there are like country level companies or that in Germany, there's things like Zalando or Otto. They also have a lot of data. They have I'm pretty sure they have good models, and they have no, but I'm small. I have, let's say, a small shop, or what do I do? What can I do to, how can I use AI there, right? What are the low hanging fruits? And, or I have I'm doomed, and I really don't have a chance to monetize these kind of things. Before monetizing, providing a better shopping experience to my customers, and then of course driving revenue with that. So what can I do today?
Yeah, I think it's a question that faced many businesses in e-commerce and beyond. That okay, how can I leverage the trend of AI and or catch the train, right? I look at it from two perspectives. Number one is, first of all, you got to know what's your value proposition, right?
Right.
Like technology comes and go, right? It's like when the internet comes, a lot of businesses needs to be transformed. When the mobile internet comes, and the same happened. And I think in the AI revolution, it's the same, maybe bigger, right? But it's the same. So the technology comes and goes. But what is the problem that you're trying to solve, right? If you're trying to solve the growth problem, and I'm not sure at this stage, a better AI-driven customer experience will bring you a lot of growth problems, because perhaps your problem is you don't have enough traffic, right? Then you need to invest in your campaigns, and right, how do you work with digital advertising? How do you acquire users? And there you can identify, okay, so what AI may help me is to help me to better optimize my SEO, right? To better help me to choose the keywords to bid, right? And then that's what AI could help, right? So you should start with your problem and your value proposition, what you're trying to do, and then identify what the technology can help you, right? So that's one. Yeah.
So if my problem is so let's get more concrete, right? Because I think this is really interesting. So if my problem is traffic, right? I don't have enough customers visiting my website. What can I do? So you mentioned I can use AI to improve the SEO. I can use AI to optimize my ad campaigns.
Yeah.
What else can I do that? And can we dig a bit deeper into that and talk about more in detail? How can I do that? So
for example,
SEO campaigns, and what else?
SEO campaigns, and maybe customer onboarding, right? How do you create a better onboarding experiences when they
okay, so that's after they arrive already, right?
Yeah,
so
after they arrive, right?
Okay,
so yeah.
Moving back to the getting them to arrive, SEO, how can I use AI for SEO on e-commerce? And how can I use AI for optimizing my e-commerce campaigns?
Yeah, right. For example, I do know there are tools out there. I haven't used them, but I know that they exist, like Jasper, right? Where they help you to create your better wording for your content, such that it can get captured by the search engines. And also nowadays, a lot of people do your social media, you publish on social media to talk about your product and services, right? And then,
Mm-hmm.
for example, you're a specialized seller about, I don't know, cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to run your multi-channel social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And Jasper can help you to create content really at scale. And you can actually try different styles. You could try to say, oh, I want a funny style, I want a expert style, and I want a surprising style, right? So then it largely lower the barrier for you to experiment with different kind of content,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
And then you would be able to know, okay, what works for me and for my audience, and then it can help you to get traffic much easier. Because imagine in the past that you need to hire a team and you need to interview these people, you need to tell them what to do. But right now, you just have a few person, and with a subscription to this service, you can actually create that at large, right? So that's how it totally changed the game.
Okay, so you need less people because the people who are working on this, on content and on SEO, now all of a sudden have superpowers.
Yeah, exactly. You perhaps just need one or two very good people. And then the way they work is not to create content per se, is really like think of some good ideas, get AI to elaborate for you, and then change it. And then it's sort of a change in a way is that you give them 20 interns and low-level workers
Right.
who may not be super good, but may sometimes have good ideas,
Right.
and then you just get it going, right? The cost is
Right.
much lower.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, opening a parenthesis now. I was talking about this the other day with a friend of mine who works in consultancy, one of the large consultancy companies, and he says that this is going to change the game in consultancy because, and probably is actually threatening already the whole business model of consultancy, because consultancy companies work with this, they are like a pyramid in terms of people, right? And they have this up or out career path. So at the base of the pyramid, you have this army of associates, junior people between years 1 and 4, and then as it starts getting narrower and narrower now, but you need all these people now, or at least you needed them until recently, because you needed people to do the actual work, produce content, to create presentations, do some research and all that. Now, if you have AI doing a lot of that work, you will not need as many associates anymore. You can do the same work with a third of them.
Yeah.
So this is going to change the entire business model of these companies, and will also make it possible for smaller players, right? All of a sudden, a small consultancy company will be able to compete with the big guys, because the difference that they had, it was like the amount of work that they could produce was just not comparable, and the quality. But now a small company can do the same with a few people because they have these tools. So closing the parenthesis, the same thing applies here to companies that work with SEO and things like that, or so maybe you don't need to hire an SEO agency anymore. You just need we need a couple of good SEO people and use these tools, and the SEO agencies might run out of business.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And the way that I look at how talent is distributed in many industries, it's like you should always follow sort of a long tail, right? You'll have people who are really, really good, right? For example, in investment, you have people like Warren Buffett, right? Who's really, really, really good. And then you have a whole huge amount of like long tail investors who some are retail, some actually are working in professional investment services, but maybe they're not super good, right? But with the help of AI, what it happens is that, in industries where the torso and the tail, you don't have a huge gap, maybe they're 20, 30, or 50%. AI just compress it, because a newcomer would be able to use these tools to seem maybe not as good, but comparable level.
Yeah.
And then because the cost is so much cheaper, then
It
people would
helps you.
prefer that.
It helps you be mediocre at something that you don't know anything about.
Exactly. Exactly.
And this is a bit scary.
Yeah. So if you talk about things like consulting, and then also SEO, right? And there are a lot of things where there are many people who are just following frameworks and processes that was given by people who are really smart about the industry, about what they do. They would say, like, you just follow these processes and they will arrive at a good outcome. And then in a way, it's like solving a closed problem at school, where you are given, here's the exam, here's the things you need to do. Just apply these 5 different frameworks. One of them will work, and you answer it, you will get a score, right? And that's what school is about in most countries. And AI is super good at these things. If you look at what they do SAT, they do the bar exam, they do all of these, they pass with flying colors.
Medical exams and things like
exactly.
that. It's just scary, right? But that doesn't mean that they are good doctors. So it's
exactly right. So they're just good at answering questions.
They're good at answering questions, exactly. And I personally was never good at testing, especially quizzes and things like that. I felt the most comfortable when the tests were sort of free, and actually when you are asked to create something. So you're not in a closed room, you can consult, you can create. So that's where I felt the most comfortable with. So having an AI like this, it's really nowadays it sort of relieves me a bit. I feel relieved somehow that you don't need to be people don't need to be test machines anymore.
Exactly.
Right? Because that's what school makes you good at.
Yeah.
Or at least most schools.
Yeah, exactly, right. So that's why it got a lot of people scared, and rightfully so, because a lot of people know that what they do not have a lot of creativity in it. They're just following processes. Maybe unwillingly, they want to do something different, but their environment do not allow them. With the help of AI, it maybe can also release them to say, I can try to use my creativities. I can ask better questions. I can, be more empathetic with humans, right? This is helpful. And also on the other hand, what I want to say is it's also a way where we could allow people to rethink what you can do, right? Because if you are not doing all these mundane things anymore, you are free to, just what you said, right? You are free to say, okay, what I can do differently, right? I have AI done most of the mundane part. It's like, when washing machine was invented and the people who are doing housework, they don't have to spend hours to do the laundry. They're like, okay, I can do more, right? I can go to work. I can go to pay more attention of educating my children, right? I think these will happen in the future, where people are released to be, I can do more meaningful part of the job that I'm doing.
I think this could be a completely separate podcast episode, just talking about how is AI going to change what people work and how people do. Let's go back to e-commerce, if you allow me. So getting people to your website, you can use AI for that, for SEO. I'm guessing that the tools that you can use to create content that sort of drive people to your website through SEO, sort of inbound marketing, content, things like that. But I'm guessing that you could also use AI to optimize your ad campaigns, right? To also optimize the content to do do A/B tests, for example, at scale and things like that. So moving on to when customers arrive the first time to your website and you need to onboard them, you mentioned that. So how can an e-commerce shop use AI in order to, when people arrive, give them that experience that actually keeps them there?
Yeah, right. For example, one thing that I was imagining, again, it may not work for everybody, but I was imagining, why couldn't we replace some of the onboarding? When you onboard on certain apps and websites, they will ask you to choose, oh, what's the thing that you like? They will give you a predetermined selection and you click on something, right? Why couldn't we sort of recreate that with a chatbot, right? Right, we can actually show you the most popular things and we say, what do you think about it, right? And people can start chatting with them, right? And you can make the onboarding much more lively, right? And you can actually, as far as I understand, you can pre-train language models on your own data set, right? On the things that you have. And then you can start, recommending people things right away after they finish a few questions with you. Right. So I would imagine this is something that a smaller company could try and experiment on.
I experimented myself, my company, we experimented some time ago, around like 2 years ago, something that we call data-driven conversation applied to e-commerce. So we took a catalog from a large e-commerce, so public data set from a large American e-commerce company, and then we took that. It was a public data set on Kaggle. So we took that data set and built a conversational experience on top of it. So the idea was, okay, I'm looking for shoes, or I want to go running and I need shoes, and basically it was a chatbot. The chatbot understood, okay, you're looking for shoes, and also got the running shoes aspect of it. So what kind of runner are you? And started asking questions in order sort of to kind of narrow down the amount of items that could recommend, like shoe sizes, is it men's or women's shoes, and so on. So trying to narrow down the options and asking follow-up questions. So we built that kind of experience. We were not very successful at bringing it to the market. We didn't spend a lot of time in it either, but we had to engineer the hell out of it, so to speak. So actually, we didn't use this clever algorithm that we built that understood that needed to ask follow-up questions. It was an algorithm. It was not the model that did that, right? So now I have the feeling, but it was still quite a good experience, I have to say, much better than all chatbots, shopping chatbots that I've seen. I hadn't seen any chatbot or shopping assistants out there that did that actually helped you browse the catalog and asked you follow-up questions. I haven't seen. Maybe there are, but the research I did, we didn't find a lot. Now, what I'm thinking is that nowadays with the large language model, if you can train the large language model on your product catalog, and you could provide a much better experience because they have so much base knowledge already.
Exactly.
If you do this training with your data set on top, that you could get an awesome experience.
Yeah, right. And when you think about how the pre-trained transformer works, is that you can give it reinforcement learning by rating the answers it gives. And then you actually know what you want in the specific context and how your chatbot reacted to your users, right? So you can do that much more efficiently now with the open source models that all these big companies have released, and to train that on your own data set and create your own data assets, right?
Okay.
So I think this is definitely possible nowadays.
So is it fair to say that a small company, small to medium e-commerce company, has a chance if they have a clear positioning, clear value proposition for example, for a specific niche of people, and if they create a special experience using one of these new technologies, that they have a chance of making it in the very competitive e-commerce space?
I think so. I do think so, right? And I do think that the future would be like you have some superstars where like the companies which create these large language models, which owns all these fundamental tools at this age, right? It's like the Android and it's like the Google and Apple of mobile. Right, like they own this platform. Large language models in the future perhaps going to be the platform, right? And then they own this ecosystem, and also their hardware providers like Nvidia, right, and Amazon, right? They own this infrastructure. But on top of it, there are these big players, and then these smaller players that got a chance if you have a clear niche that you specifically target to, and these tools enable you to do so, right?
But the sort of, will they have to live in certain ecosystems created by these giants, like happened a bit with Apple and Android? So, I mean, if you want to make it in the mobile world, you have to create a mobile app for iPhone and put it on the marketplace, and then you need to do the same on Android and put it on the Google marketplace. And there's even the alternative marketplace for China for Android, right? So you have to put them on these marketplaces, otherwise you're just not visible. So is it still going to be like that? Like, I mean, I get this feeling nowadays in the e-commerce space. You have players like Amazon that sort of you kind of either you join them, in some cases either you join them and join their marketplace, or you are doomed because they'll just eat you up alive. And now it's my impression it's becoming increasingly more difficult for companies, or at least until recently it was becoming increasingly more difficult for small to medium e-commerce companies to compete in this environment. Is this new wave of technology going to change that, or is it just going to make it even worse?
I do agree with what you're saying, that it's becoming harder and harder for smaller players, whether a platform or a seller, to operate with the big players. And I do see that the wave of AI is going to change that, right? Like, let alone,
do you think it's going to make it more competitive or less competitive?
I think it's going to make it easier for the smaller players to compete.
Okay.
Right.
That's positive.
Yeah, that's a positive thing. I do think that's a positive thing. If we just put aside the large language models, right? We just look at the rise of TikTok, right? AI is a big part of it, right? The recommendation engine behind it, that's the AI. But what it is good at is at discovery. Amazon is horrible for discovery, right? I don't know the Amazon experience in Europe, but in Amazon US, which I check a lot, and also, Amazon JP, which is also fairly large, they're really bad at discovery for people. But if you look at other e-commerce platforms where they put a lot more effort in discovery, like Alibaba's and also TikTok, right? It's all content driven, right? You give a lot of people of content. Also, you add in, on the content side, you have short video, you have live stream, and you have posts, feeds, and then you just get people to discover much more things that they want to buy. They may not even think of buying at the from the beginning, and that makes the shopping much more fun, right? And this is opportunity for smaller players, right? You don't have to only compete on the price. If you compete on the price, you're not going to win, right? Amazon is going to be the winner.
That's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I mean, that's one of the positive things I see with these two. I remember going back to thinking, my memory is bringing me back to the times of the personal computer, right? And I read the biography recently again from the founder of Apple. What's his name? Steve Jobs. And he was saying, he was talking to Steve Wozniak, and his co-founder, and explaining to him what the power of the personal computer was in his point of view. It was empowering of the individual. It was allowing an individual or a small company to compete with the big ones.
Yeah.
Because it just gave them superpowers. The personal computer gave a person superpowers, right? So, and this is the same. There's other dangers with AI that didn't exist with the personal computer, but I also see that this is the biggest opportunity of AI. It sort of allows individuals, allows small companies, small organizations, small teams to create impact with not a lot of resources, right? And this is what I love about it, because all of a sudden you can do the same amount of work that 100 people would do.
Yeah, right.
With 5 people.
Exactly.
And especially if you need to test things at scale, if you need to try things out a lot. This is a lot of work, for example, in a startup. All the things that you need to try and test and tune and iterate, all these things, you can accelerate them using AI, using these new technologies. And this is exciting. Of course, there's a scary part of it too. I don't want to focus on that today.
I totally agree with what you're saying, right? So empowering the individuals and the smaller players to compete with the big ones. And another aspect I want to bring in here is learning, right? Like ChatGPT, of course, has its issues of like bullshitting in a very convincing way. But if you're a little, diligent, a little critical, you try to search and compare different sources, you can easily identify that, okay, you're bullshitting me, right? But other than that, it's a great learning tool, right? If you think about learning, what are the key components of learning, right? So you need to have good content, you need to have a good teacher, and you need to get a really strong learning mind. So if you're willing to learn as an individual, as a small organization to enter a new space, then AI actually helps you with these first two. It helps you to organize the content, and it tells you what to learn, what are the steps, and it teaches you well. It never gets bored, right? And it doesn't criticize you in a really bad way. So it can help you to learn a lot faster. And if you think about a lot of industries, my personal feeling is that, of course, again, there are deep knowledges which only the insiders know. But there are a lot of the knowledge which it's just because invisible entry barriers that the people inside the industry don't tell you. They don't talk about it. And they make it sound like really, really hard to learn. And they say, oh, you don't have the experience, you cannot enter this, you cannot do that, right? But when you got access, you realize, oh, this is actually so easy, right? It's nothing complicated. And that's exactly what AI do. AI will not put the barriers for you. AI will explain to you in a very simple way. And then you can learn that.
So it doesn't make you a master at anything, right? You still need to do the work and you still need to learn things yourself. But it can indeed accelerate entering a new field, learning something new. I agree. I mean,
And
it's also a sparring partner. You can ask, so where can I find stuff about this and that topic? What books should I
yeah,
read? And what do you think about this and what that? And it's amazing. It is amazing.
yeah, and that's exactly the point. When you think about the individuals, how you compete, smaller players, first you need to lower the barrier to entry, right?
Yeah.
That's what antitrust is about, lower the barrier to entry. And second, you need something to power and accelerate your growth. And that's what AI does to make it so much cheaper for you to enter and to grow in the area so that you can do the real work to grow your organization, grow your capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so e-commerce. I'd like to stick to the topic. So we talked about driving people to your shop. Then when you arrive, you provide them with an experience that is engaging, using a modern AI tool like a large language model. This would be a great new experience, and I'm guessing that many companies are already working on this as we speak. What else? What would be the next thing? So, for example, what about retaining a customer? So once you have somebody you onboarded, they became your customer. Now, how can you use AI, for example, to retain them, to make them loyal to you?
Yeah, well, I think number one is how you run your campaigns with them, right? Like how do you keep engaging them, get them to come to visit back? You are able to create more valuable content on your platform, right? Yeah, we talk about the whole content generation piece. You are able to create targeted pricing, which if you're able to predict their sort of a purchasing behavior, their willingness to pay to certain things, and then you're able to actively give them certain promotions, right? Let's say we are able to lower these for you. We'll give you a $5 voucher for this, right? I don't see Western companies do that a lot, but the Asian companies are doing that on a massive scale, right? How they manage their promotion spend.
Okay, so the promotions, so you have a base of customers and you're talking about like sending promotions to current customers. Okay.
Yeah, sending promotion to customers, like
cash
discount. Yeah.
They're quite, I mean, there's quite a few companies that I'm a customer of that are constantly sending me promotions. So it's increasing, at least in Europe. These practices are increasing. I don't really have a comparison because I've never lived in Asia, but I think that this is increasing. That companies are, I mean, sending me emails. Oh, here's a €5 discount, for this and that. So they keep sending me things, and they do it online. They send me like snail mail, like. So that's also the thing that European companies do. They send me a letter, because it still works. Apparently, it does work, at least in Germany. Because if it didn't work, they would stop doing it. I'm guessing these e-commerce companies. But Amazon in Germany sends me a letter with a voucher. Me to spend. So
that's something that always amazed me of like how the world operates differently, because I had seeing how things were done in Europe. I worked in Southeast Asia. I was from China. We worked on Latin America and the US stuff. So I was really surprised that mail, like the direct mail, still works. The paper still works in certain countries. Yeah, right. I'm really, really surprised.
I mean, it does work. Here in Germany, it's still a big thing. So, for example, supermarket chains. So we do most of our grocery shopping online these days, especially since Corona. I mean, we almost completely shifted from going shopping since the pandemic, going shopping supermarket to online. So we go sometimes quickly to the supermarket to buy something we forgot or we
Yeah.
ran out of, but if we need it now, but if we could wait until tomorrow, the day after, we just order it, or we just order once a week from each one of the suppliers that we use, and that's it. And but still, they go and put like they have these newspapers sort of with the promotions, like sort of catalog, the supermarket with promotions and all, and they stick it in our mailbox. And well, in my family at worst, I don't pick them up, but my wife does. She picks them up and reads them and says, "Oh, look at this. So let me check if they still have it online," and orders them. So the mail, the classic mail still works. And it's still a huge practice, at least here in Germany, right? So
like I am so amazed by the fact that this behavior sticks. That's diversity is part of the wonder of life.
So I mean, if you could, of course, printing paper is not a sustainable thing. And it's very hard to personalize, right? So that's the difficulty here. But if you could find a way of doing making it more sustainable and sort of a circular economy that you can actually reuse this paper and whatever, in theory, you could actually send a mail prospect to each one, a different one to each one of your customers.
Exactly.
A physical one. But that's not really sustainable yet. Because if it would, I'm sure it would work and people would love it. Here in Germany, I'm sure people would prefer that, and it would work much better than any mailing campaigns or ads, because it's physical. People can touch it, and this is personal. Like if you could do something
personalized
like that,
physical experience, right?
a personalized physical experience, right? If somebody could make this sustainable, and it could, I mean, this could be used to drive e-commerce engagement and revenue, and because people would love the experience, I'm absolutely sure.
Right. Like, and also if it's timely, think of that, right? Because a lot of times people want FOMO, fear of missing out. The voucher is only valid for this period of time, is only going to happen this time. And in physical world, it's just so much harder to control. But if you can make that happen, oh my God, you were like, I'm going to spend it. I'm going to spend it.
So we just came up with a business idea. If we can find a way of making this printing personalized promotional mail sustainable, then this could be a great business model to provide this as a service.
Like, and if we just think out loud, to be honest, it's not super hard to do, right?
To make it sustainable. You need to return it, for example. You need to return it so that it could be recycled. It needs to be circular. Right? The materials part is hard, right? The material part, like the physical environmental issue, is the difficult part, which we're limited. But if you think about just printing it out and deliver it to the customer and make it personalized, that's easy to do. That's easy. That can be
really
automated.
This part. That can be purely automated and then run by an algorithm, right?
Now it's more expensive than printing 3,000. Let's say you print 100,000 newspapers. They're all 100,000 prospects. They're all the same, and you're just distributing through a neighborhood in the city. Then if you have the individuals, you need to make sure you put the right one in the right mailbox. Now this is more expensive, so it's a bigger logistics issue. But again, you could do it together with the delivery. For example, if you have an e-commerce company, when you deliver something to somebody, you need to go there anyway. So with that delivery, you already give them a physical prospect, right? And that we just send them a personalized physical product catalog that people personalized for that particular person.
Yeah.
This is a powerful thing. I think.
Yeah.
Um, again, we might have something here. So our
Yeah.
listeners, forget what I said. Forget what I said. This is a new startup idea, but anyway, maybe this is already exists. We just don't know it. It's likely. Now, so I think we discussed very interesting topics about e-commerce, how AI can help the small ones and the medium ones compete, and that there's a lot of opportunity there. Now, what are the problems that you see with this? Like, so I don't want to be negative about AI, so let's focus on the data part. Now, many people are concerned about privacy these days and how their data is used by these companies, essentially, to sometimes even manipulate people. And so it's good if they are providing value and giving something that is valuable to you. But on the other hand, this gets also misused by these companies, by some companies to manipulate you either into buying something that you don't need, because as we know in capitalism, lots of stuff, useless stuff, is produced that needs to be sold and consumed, is one of the disadvantages. Or it manipulates you in a darker way into getting some more extreme opinions about something. But if we stick to the e-commerce topic, is there a danger that these e-commerce companies that have models that know you better than you might know yourself, at least in terms of your consumption habits, what is the danger with that?
Yeah. There, like you said, there are definitely a lot of concerns and risks here. And overconsumption and overspending in terms both of money and time is a clear concern, and it's already happening, right?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, if you look at cases like TikTok, right?
You're reading my thoughts.
Yeah.
Mindless TikTok watching video one after the other with no goal whatsoever. You just get hooked to that.
Exactly.
And after 15 minutes, you thought, oh, I just lost 15 minutes of my life looking at nonsense.
Yeah. So if you look at the internet time spent for this part of the world that I'm familiar with in Southeast Asia, 5 of the countries made into the top 10 in the average daily time spent on the internet. Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and a couple more. A lot of such time is actually spent on social media, and the biggest one is actually TikTok and then YouTube. People spend a lot of time on that, and then they also do impulse buying, and they buy things which may not be super necessary for them and super useful for them, especially for the lower income cohort. It could be more of a concern. But as you said, that's part of capitalism. That the attention economy and the consumerism is already happening. And to be honest, I don't know. Like, just economically wise, I'm more leaning towards the kind of free market. So I don't know, like, if the consumer choose to do so, what regulators can do anything about it if they're adults. If they're not adults, that's another story. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm also a fan of free market. I think that free market is should be the driving force of these things. On the other hand, a free market also creates a lot of abuse, and one of the things that could happen is like creating addictions, creating debt for
Yeah.
people. So there are problems associated to this right now.
Yeah.
I'm not defending that we should regulate everything and all, but I see problems with that too. This in technology could just supercharge this kind of things.
It's already happening. Yeah.
I mean, the like driving people to buy stuff that they don't need. This already existed before the internet. Now,
Yeah.
I still go to if I go to the supermarket today with my 5-year-old daughter, right? The supermarkets, they make sure that they put the toys and the things that children want at their like height,
At their level.
at their level, and at the strategic places, so that I don't know, we are waiting in the queue to pay. They have the toys right there and the sweets and all the stuff. So my daughter always asks me to buy something, because so I almost avoid bringing her to these places, because it's almost impossible to avoid that. They see this and that they want it, and you have to say no, and then so and you end up, you cave a good part of the times, you end up buying this stuff for them, even though either they have enough toys or they don't need too many sweets, right? They shouldn't eat so many sweets. So this stuff happens already. Now, I have the sense that internet and now AI is making it worse.
Yeah, I agree. It is making it worse. It's making it a much more larger scale and much easier to do. We know the addiction problem and also debt, right? As you mentioned, for example, lots of these e-commerce companies say have loan programs, right? So for the buyer, they have buy now, pay later, which it's will
also dangerous.
Yeah, right. Which you will usually have an AI engine, a fraud and a risk engine behind it, which will determine whether we underwrite the buyer and then how much money we should loan to them. And then this creates debt. And in Indonesia, one of the larger buy now, pay later team, they have, as far as I understand, they have like 1,000 people debt collecting team to go to collect the debt, knock on people's doors.
Oh, wow.
And and then if you look at the annualized rate for their loans, these buy now, pay later loans, if you only pay the minimum, the interest rate is close to 150% annualized.
Wow, 150%. Wow.
Yes. So that's part of the business, actually what fund the e-commerce business. So if you think about it, in this part of the world, e-commerce is a low margin business because your cost of production is high. They don't have a mass production oversupply like in China. Your operating efficiency is low because of infrastructure and payment. All this cost money, much more money compared to, let's say, China. Your cost of acquisition is relatively high because everybody's competing on users' time and attention. And then the margin that you can charge, and then you run a lot of promotions. So your cost of sales is high as well. So the margin in e-commerce is low. But you can just lend money to people and you charge them super high interest, and then you all of a sudden make the business much more profitable. So that's like a whole ecosystem that is built up on this. And their players purely bet on this play, and they're very successful in this part of the world. And so it is creating problems, and government needs to do certain things. I mean, in China, I not necessarily agree with what the Chinese government did in regulating this space. They basically cracked down on everybody. But before that, you would read on the news that there's college students who owed, several hundred, uh, several hundred thousand dollars
Okay.
for buying random things on online platforms, and they got loans from these things.
Okay, but
So,
this is
and then
where
the person
the
commits suicide.
companies that are doing the loans, that are giving out the loans, are not being responsible. So this clearly needs to be regulated. The underwriting. I mean, how much debt can a person
Yeah,
have? The banks or the financial institutions that lend the money
but
need to
they're
make.
making money. That's the thing. They're making money because their model are optimizing for the overall outcome. So because
Yeah,
your interest is so high, so your default rate can be higher too.
but they have an incentive to lend more and more and more.
Exactly.
I can
Yeah.
see that, and this is where regulation needs to come in. So that's where it starts. That's where I stop believing in free market,
Yeah.
because there needs to be a.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, when we talk about the threats and risks, right? I feel like there's three kinds. There is this economical, there's societal, and there's existential,
Mhm.
right? So if you look at the economical things, we are basically need to ensure that the smaller players in a free market, their rights get protected, right? For example, your interest rate can only go so high. You can
Mhm.
only loan so much to the individuals who do not have sufficient assets to back their spending. Or like for underaged children, there's only so much time that they should be interacting with AI algorithm because you don't want them to be exposed, right? And that's why, the US, they're trying to propose like a bill of rights for AI, right? Like to say, okay, govern there, what are the rights, at least the economic rights that you have. And then there are the societal
Mhm.
threats, which are, for example, biases, right? For example, displacement of jobs, right?
Right.
Like how that is going to change the society. And then the existential is, of course, the super intelligent things, which, that's more philosophical than pragmatic. And I don't think that's going to impact our lifetime anyway. So I think the first is easier to regulate, and the second is harder, depends on your society.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. I mean, I see the risks. Some of it, some of them are not new. They are just because they already existed before. The problem now is that the scale at which these things and the speed at which these things can happen, and that creates, I believe, new challenges in terms of regulating these things, making sure that those things don't happen. What you described, that like students get hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt that they'll have to spend a couple of decades paying back. So I also see those challenges too. So let's try. We are running out of time. We're towards the end of our episode. I would like us to finish in a hopeful note and positive note. So what are the things? So we talked about the empowerment of the individual, the new opportunities for individuals in small companies, right? What are the other things that make you hopeful in this, that technology can help humanity with, and can actually improve people's lives and not just make us shopping robots that we sometimes become?
Yeah. So you're asking what we think that the technology can help us to do, right? Do more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking
Yeah.
you, is the positive, like a hopeful, let's call it a hopeful
Sure.
perspective about how AI can actually help us, help improve people's lives and not just drive them into the hole like sometimes happens.
Yeah. And another thing we haven't touched, which I was really excited to see, is a connection of AI and robotics. The connection of the powerful, large language models and other generative AIs, and how you connected that with robots. To me, it feels like, like the factory job can become much safer, and you can enable people to do many more things, or you can retrain your workers to do more meaningful things than just picking apples, for example, right? And you can actually make them to have a conversation with a machine, right? And you can build more machines, right? Like, what I feel a lot of people are challenging this with, like, okay, people are going to lose their jobs. My question to that is that, yeah, but like, you can also build more machines, right? And then you can get people to interact with the machines in a much more intelligent way, right? And then you can make a lot of jobs much better. For example, mining, it's a super difficult job.
Yeah, really. I mean, it shouldn't be done by people. This is clear.
Super difficult, super dangerous. And then what if you have AI and robotics assisting you, right? And you can get the robots, which is connected with a conversational AI interface with the workers to do the real dangerous things like explosion, right? Like, getting through certain tunnels, right? Like, I feel if we are able to see that kind of future, then human lives will be very different.
For the better, we hope.
Yeah.
I agree with you. There's dangers, and I believe that, and I've been listening to a lot of podcasts episodes, different podcasts recently about the dangers of these generalized AI models, AGIs, or at least something that is moving towards AGI. And we will need to do something about it as humanity, and regulate these things, because they could be weaponized. There's all kinds of, it could grow out of control. But I'm also more on the hopeful side, and see this as an opportunity for humanity to get to the next level. Now, it's happening very fast, and we are kind of having some problems in keeping up. Society in general, and governments and politicians are kind of having a difficult time keeping up with how fast the technology is evolving. But I'm also on the hopeful side that this is gonna make us better off, and that we can solve certain problems like poverty and other things using this technology. So I'm hopeful in that sense too.
Me too. Yeah.
And actually, I strongly believe that it is AI that's going to solve these fundamental humanity problems. At least it's going to help us do that much quicker.
Yeah.
And
at a much larger scale.
At much larger scale, exactly. Yeah. And so, anything else you'd like to add? One last question. What advice would you give to young people, for example, deciding out of school, deciding what career path they're going to take at this point? What advice would you give them?
I would say, if AI is a domain that you are interested in, just hop on the train, get your hands dirty. There are tons of things online. It's so much easier to learn these things than, 12, 15 years ago when I got started. And then I just wish that I could have that when I was learning when I get into it, because it's so much easier to learn nowadays, right? If you want to learn resources, there are tons of courses online. You can interact with it. You can also get your hands dirty with all these tools like GitHub Copilot. And also you have this cloud infrastructure where you can just pay a little bit of money and you can run these models by yourself. This is great. Like for young
It's
people,
amazing.
if you're
amazing.
interested, come on, go and try it. Like it's gonna be very fun, at least.
I mean, sometimes I wish I could just take a few months off. Right now with my company, I'm very busy. I cannot really take a sabbatical, but I wish I could take a 6-month sabbatical just to dive into these things and explore because it's such an amazing time.
It's such an amazing time with all the tools and the resources available. Just try a random idea and learn something, get your hands dirty. Even if it doesn't work, you learn something and it's going to be useful.
It's definitely an amazing time. Thank you for joining us, Nan. It was a pleasure. Talking to you was a great conversation. I think we could keep talking for hours.
It was great too for me, Paulo. It was a very interesting conversation. We both learned something and we have to think, hey, what does this mean for us? That's great.
So thanks again for joining us. Thank you everyone for listening and for watching. Don't forget to give us a like. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe our channel, or you can also listen to our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, also on Spotify. Thank you everybody, and see you again soon.